Hi, Kat Chancellor with Stamp Art Connection and stampartconnection.com. Today I'm going to feature a card using the stamp set Dandelion Wishes, and this is out of the annual catalog. Now, I often get asked, how do I approach a project? What is it that how do I get started? Well, I wanted to kind of show that I made this card here using this stamp set, made it very kind of monochromatic, in that I just chose my mint macaron on a setup on a whisper white, stamped in the background, and then I put some mint macaron ribbon with some crumb cake. Kind of a nice safe card. And this is basically a card that I wanted to create because I do have a friend who is recovering from surgery, and I wanted to send her a card. Well, after looking at it, I wondered, well, how can I punch this up? What can I do to kind of give this a little bit more pizzazz, a little bit more color and interest? So I want to show you how I went ahead and approached my project. What I did is I love the designer series paper that Stampin' Up comes out with, and this right here is the Garden Impressions pack. Just 6x6 sheets with just lots of really neat colors and patterns. Well, I went ahead and I picked like 3 of my favorite patterns, and let me go ahead and pick one of my other favorite pattern right here. 3 really patterns that I really love. I love blues, and I really love these are melon mambos and some saffron, some petal pink. And I believe this color right here is the wonderful brand new, I believe it's Mango Melody. It's this kind of this dark orange here. And then you can see we got Calypso Coral, we have Night of Navy, as well as some Pacific Point, and some of this really neat shaded spruce. So I kind of went into my card stack, and I wanted to pick out some cardstock that would kind of match. And what I really liked was this blue, yellow, and this Calypso Coral combination. I really thought that was pretty. So just simply Night of Navy, So Saffron, and Calypso Coral. So now I'm going to use these, I'm going to kind of combine them, and I'm going to use quite a bit of this So Saffron in my design. But I'm going to kind of use this as our basis for our design. So what I wanted to do is I kind of went off the same thing I did here. I just kind of like tried to stamp this with the So Saffron and then put some Night and Navy. And that it really didn't do anything for what I really wanted to kind of make this card pop. So instead of doing that, what I did is I stamped this with the clear embossing powder, and then I went over it with a dauber right here, So Saffron, and I just kind of went over that, and then I stamped my my Night of Navy sentiment, and I thought that made a much bigger impact. And let me show you, this is what my final card is. Isn't that gorgeous? I just kind of used the designer series paper. I use that as my background. I have some wonderful white gross grain ribbon here. I also have some Calypso Coral twine or baker's twine and some Night of Navy. I mean, once I start pulling these things out and putting them on my crafting table, I really started to kind of get some ideas on how I wanted to combine everything. So the card sizes cardstock that you're going to need is I'm going to use the base card, which is going to be your standard 8.5 by 10. So you're going to cut this at 5.5 by 4 1/4 to create your base card. And then we're going to go ahead and do our fold line here at 4 1/4. And you're also going to need some Whisper White sheets, because we're going to use these to kind of back our designer series paper, as well as another sheet where we're going to stamp 2 sentiments, and I mean 2 images and 2 sentiments on this one piece, and we're going to emboss, and then we're going to use our sponge dauber to kind of add the color to it. So you'll probably need about four of those sheets, and all the information will be inside the on my comment section on my video. Okay, so having said that, let's go ahead and begin to cut our cardstock so we can make our card. And I want to put together this card. So I am going to, I'm kind of looking at how I want to combine this, and how I want to combine my colors, and whether I want to use a yellow or a blue as a background. I think I kind of like that blue with the white. And see, and I'm just kind of playing around with the different colors to see which really appeals to me. And I think I kind of like this combination here, and then I like this combination here. Now, this card right here, I think has, and I have my inks here, so this will be my So Saffron that I'm going to use with this one. I have my Night of Navy to do my my sentiment. This one, I have my, I believe this is Pacific Point for this blue, and I do think it goes well with this Night of Navy. But I need to find this color here, which I believe is Mango Melody. So let me pull this one in. Okay, so there is our Mango Melody, and that does in fact kind of pull that color in. I've got this color, and what other kind of light colors? There's a little bit of soft sea foam in here, but I'm kind of going to go with those colors there. I think that would make. Well, let me pull in soft sea foam, because we're okay. So there's soft sea foam, and that would be interesting with that. So I'm thinking that I'm going to go with this combination, the soft sea foam, which is what I'm going to sponge daub, and this is going to be my what I'm going to stamp my sentiment with. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this one, only I'm going to use my So Saffron and then my Night of Navy to stamp my sentiment. So now I've kind of, you know, collected my colors and the combinations that I want to use to make my 2 cards, and I'm using this as my sample. Now the other thing you're going to need is I'm using this 3/4 punch that's going to round off this corner here. There's also, and this is a retired product, but this was a Project Life punch that rounded off the corner. If you don't have that, then I would really recommend going out and purchasing this punch, because this is really a handy tool to have. Okay, so I'm going to need my clear embossing powder, and I'm using some of my old products. This is glitter clear epoxy shapes that came out of, I believe it was the Occasions catalog. Now I have to tell you, though this is a retired product, I'm still going to use it. You can use substitute just a little spot of glue, which is using the fine tip glue pen, because if you just use a little spot of this glue, this will create the same kind of clear epoxy shape. But I do recommend that when Stampin' Up! Has these wonderful embellishments, to pick them up, because you can use them for a long time, since the colors really don't shift very often. Okay, so let's go ahead and put these aside, and let's begin cutting out our cardstock for our project. Okay, I'm bringing in my stamping trimmer. This is a great product. I've had this for over 3 years now. I kind of have it marked off here at the 4 1/4 and the 5 1/2, because what I do is I'll take a piece of my cardstock, I'll go here at the 5 1/2, and I'll cut this, and then I'll move it down to the 4 1/4 right here, and I'll move my cutting edge, and I'll just use my scoring, and I'll come up with my card. I'm going to do the same thing. I've already cut this piece at 5 1/2, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to score it at 4 1/4. So I have this piece, these two pieces made. Now, as I said, I'm going to use these 2 pieces of Whisper White, and I have these pre-cut. I'm going to use 2 pieces of Whisper White as kind of a background to put my designer series paper. So since these are cut, these 2 pieces here, and you can see I keep a little cutting chart, proportional matting chart on my my cutter. These Whisper White pieces are 5 1/4 by 4. So my next piece, which is going to be my DSP, is going to be cut at 5 3 3/4. So I'm going to want my card to go this way, so I'm going to cut the orientation of my paper that way. So again, I'm cutting this at 5. And I'm moving my scoring cutter aside, 5, and we're going to cut this at 3 3/4. And there is 3 3/4. Okay, so that's that piece. We're going to do the same thing with this piece here. I'm going to cut this, and this one looks like it really doesn't matter the orientation. 5 and 3 3/4. Okay, so I always pick up my DSP because I can always use this for another project. All right, so there is my paper for my cards, and I think those are just lovely. So now let's go ahead and put these aside, and let's bring in the sheet that we're going to do our stamping and embossing. And I'm just going to go ahead and use my embossing buddy here, and I'm bringing in my stamp, which is this one right here, and my Versamark. And I'm just going to stamp this up. I just juiced my pad, so I'm just doing it very lightly. And I'm lining this up at the top of my paper here. Okay, so it's going to kind of go like that. And this is where my sentiment's going to go. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ink it up again. And I'm going to do the same thing, only I'm going to do it right down here. There we go. Okay, so those two are done. I'm going to bring in I'm going to carefully slide this way, and I'm going to bring in my little powder. This is clear embossing powder. I'm just going to sprinkle that all over and just make sure that, and you can always just go ahead and then bring this up again. And just make sure you get all your pieces and parts covered. And there you go. You can see I've got that nicely covered. And I usually just kind of take this, and I have this brush. I like to just hit the back of it to get any of these stray pieces off. Okay, so let me go ahead and move this aside and hold this at the corner, at the farthest corner. You can see where it's been stamped. I have my my heat tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and blow across this way. Okay, so that's nicely done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring my trimmer back in, and this is cut at 5.5. So all I'm going to do is slide this down to about 2 3/4. And I'm just going to kind of slide it to where it's between where I've just embossed, and then I'm just going to cut it. So there it is. I have 2 pieces that have been nicely cut, and these are the pieces I'm going to use now with my sponge dauber. Now we're going to do one in yellow, and I think I'm going to do the other one. I'm going to do in the I'm going to do one in soft seafoam, and the other one in the So Saffron to go with our cards. So the first one let's do is the So Saffron. I'm just simply going to open up my thing, grab some ink on my dauber, and I'm going to start out in the middle and kind of work out from there. So I'm going to start out in the middle in a circular motion. And just kind of work out from there. And I want to leave some white where I want to put my sentiment. We go along the edge here. There you go. Just make sure you have some very good contrast with your I just really like to put lots of color right there. Okay, so that is my So Saffron. So I'm going to put this one away. Now I have a little bin here where I keep a lot of extra little colors. So, and I even have this one marked because I've used it several times. I believe this is mint macaron. I've got some Bermuda Bay, but I don't have one for this new color, soft seafoam. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pull out one of my new sponge daubers. These are available in the annual catalog. Let's go ahead and close that. This is that new really nice case. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the same thing with this. I'm going to ink it up really good. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to start in the middle and kind of work my way out. So now that I have this done, I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment. And my sentiment is sending well wishes your way. So I'm going to use my my Pacific Point and my Night of Navy. I'm going to use Pacific Point on this one here. And I'm just going to lay it right there. And this is very well inked. And I'm going to line the bottom of this sentiment up with the bottom of my card. And just there. And then I'm going to clean this off. And I'm using my new chamois. So now that I've got that, now I'm going to take this one and use my Night of Navy, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that's lined up and just right there. So now that is done. Isn't that pretty? All right, so now let's go ahead and finish this up. The first thing I want to do is I want to get a piece of cardstock, and I'm going to use another piece of Whisper White. Again, this is cut at 5 1/4 by 4, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn this right like this. And let me bring this one this way. I'm going to bring my cutting board in, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to set it right here. And you can see where I'm going to cut. I'm not making any real measurements. I'm just cutting by eye. And it's basically 1/8 of an inch larger than the card, okay? And it's there you go. So if I were to measure it, this is 4 by 2 and a little bit over, I guess 2 and it must be 1/8. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8. All right. If you really wanted to get into measuring it, but I prefer to kind of do some of this by sight because it's really not that hard. Now I have that one lined up. I'm going to push this over till I kind of see where my line is. And yep, that's just about right. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm lining it up to where I want to see it. Okay, so basically the bottom of my card is kind of like in the bottom of my view right here. And there you go, just really fast and easy. So now that I have this, what we're going to do is, before we put this on our cards, we're going to bring in our 3-corner punch, and I'm going to go ahead and only do the corner, opposing corners. I'm going to do that corner and turn it all the way around, and we're going to do that corner. So there's our opposing corners. We're going to do the same thing with the white piece. That corner, turn it all the way around, and that corner. Now that gives it a really interesting shape. I think it's better than a square. Kind of gets you out of doing circles and ovals, and adds a little bit more visual interest. Do the same thing with this piece, just corner to corner set that aside. So now we have our 2 pieces, and let's line that up. There you go. So I'm simply going to bring in my snail. I don't know if you can hear Rocky. He went out for a little run with me this morning, so he is just very tired. Okay, bring my snail. I can embellish this again. I'm going to use these clear epoxy shapes. And this is the one that's being used. I'm just going to grab a X-Acto knife. I'm using the largest shape down here at the bottom. I'm going to pull up and I'm just going to put it in the middle of my dandelion. Right there. And then I'm going to take the smaller shape and I'm going to go ahead, because the rule of 3, I like to use 3 shapes. So I'm going to put 1 shape here at the end, and I'm going from the smallest here. I'm going to pull this one up. I'm going to put this one right here. Oops, that one's stuck on my finger. Let me get this off. We're going to put this one right here. And then the other one, or another one, we're going to put right up here. So we have the center shape here, and then we did 1, 2, 3, kind of across. And we're going to do the same thing with this one. One, two. You hear my little snoring pug. And 3. So there we go. And what I'd like to do now is, before I put these down, I'm going to grab my designer series paper and my white cardstock, and I'm going to pick either a piece of ribbon or a piece of twine. I don't have anything in the soft sea foam. And a piece of white ribbon and some soft sea foam. This is my alcohol stamping blends, and I'm going to take my white and I'm just going to add some color. Now, the more swipes you make, the darker your color. So there you go. I now have a piece of ribbon that matches my card. How about that? Isn't that pretty? It matches perfectly. So that's another good use of your alcohol markers. So now let's take this piece here. We're going to flip this around. I'm going to put this right about there. We're going to flip it around, and I'm going to stick it on with just a little bit of snail just for now, because I'm going to use my tear tape. Okay, so there's that piece. Now this here, I'm simply going to use this baker's twine, and I'm going to take my baker's twine right here, and I'm going to just put some snail right there. And let's see, I really want to do 3 pieces of baker's twine. Let's see if that, whoops, don't want to lose that. 1, 2, 3. Let's just cut that there. Okay, so I got 3 pieces of baker's twine. I'm going to just put it, and I'm doing this because that way I don't waste a lot of baker's twine, right? And I'm just going to go ahead and put that, rather than wrapping it all the way around the card. Kind of saves me a little bit of product there. Okay, so I'm going to have that. So now that I've got my ribbon attached to the back, let me grab my tear tape, and this is how I make sure that my ribbon is going to stay on my card. I use my tear tape and I lock it in right there. Okay, so let's finish up our cards. I'm going to grab some I'm going to use some dimensionals, but first I'm just simply going to use my snail now. Now I use my tear tape on that other piece because I just want to make sure I get my I don't lose my ribbon, but I can use snail right there because I know that's going to work well. Okay, so now that we have our outside, let's go ahead and pull in 2 more of our Whisper White cards cut at 5 1/4 by 4. Oops, wrong color. I have them, I have these all stacked over here. Yeah, right color, right size. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to stamp the inside. We're going to go into our case, and I'm going to use this stamp. There, that's perfect. And then let's get our So Saffron, and let's go ahead and do another one. And that's perfect. The last piece I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to do a couple of envelopes because I'm actually a featured artist at a local boutique where I sell my cards. So I want to go ahead and I want to take my envelope, and now that my cards are done, I'm just going to set them aside, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fold this flap over right here. I'm going to take this same stamp, actually I think I'm going to take this stamp, and we're going to stamp that across. Just testing it there. And we're just going to stamp that right there. I'm going to turn it around. We're going to grab these itty bitty little stamps right here. And I'm just going to stamp these very delicately. There. So here's my card for this right here. There's my envelope. Now let's get my other envelope. A beautiful set of cards using my Dandelion Wishes stamp set. Very simple, using our designer series paper from our Garden Impressions stack. Using just simply some white gross grain ribbon and our alcohol markers to color our ribbon so that it will match perfectly. And there you go. If you would like some samples of this paper stack, you can go on to my site at stampartconnection.com, go to products offered, and I'll offer for $3 you'll get a small stack, sample stack of this large pack, so you don't have to spend all the money. If you're really not sure, you can sample the paper, you can make yourself a set of cards, and voila. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please press like and subscribe to my newsletter at Stamp Art Connection and stampartconnection.com. This is Kat Chancellor. Happy stamping.